Oké. Nou, welkom allemaal op Piratenpartij Benefiet. Ik ben Roberto Moretti, kandidaat voor de Tweede Kamerverkiezingen. Ik wil even onze gasten welkom heten. We hebben Justus Römeth van de Duitse Piratenpartij. We hebben Dirk Groot, lijsttrekker van de Nederlandse Piratenpartij. We hebben Patrick Schiefer, die vooral bezig is met de internationale piraten. En ja, ik ben dan ook aanwezig. Dus ik wil even inleiding geven. Zo. Nou, ik wil even het woord geven aan Justus Römeth. Dan kan hij zichzelf introduceren en dan kan hij zijn onderwerp ook bespreken. Dus een applaus voor Justus Römeth.
Ja, hallo. Ik hoorde dat ik beter is om in Engels te praten. I heard that it's better to speak in English. Is that right? Okay. I prepared my talk in Dutch, so I may have to translate some stuff. So excuse me if it's a bit bumpy. My name is Justus Römeth. I was born in 1986 in Hanover, Germany. I finished high school there and did civic community service. Then in 2006 I went to Amsterdam to study history and a minor in business at the University of Amsterdam. In 2009 I went for Erasmus to Prague, and now I'm studying in Krakow and in Göttingen, Germany, and I'm studying Euroculture. And I'm connecting the Pirate Party to this topic that I'm studying. I'm a member since 2009 of the German Pirate Party. I'm active on a European level, on a few international things. For example, Pirate Times, the new international newsletter and blog, but also on some local topics in Hanover and Lower Saxony, which is the state Hanover is in. So, again, excuse me if the presentation is a bit bumpy. I prepared it in Dutch. I will start with talking about the history of the Pirate Party movement. Then I will try to explain why there is a Pirate Party movement and why it has success. Then how the success is happening. I will talk about a few problems and then I will finish with talking about the chances that are there for both the movement and the different parties that are part of the movement, but also for the chances that the movement brings to society, in my opinion. So, I will start with what is the Pirate Party, or the history of the Pirate Party. It was founded in Sweden on the 1st of January 2006 by Rick Feigwinger. And in the summer of the same year, a few other countries like Austria or Germany followed suit. In the Netherlands, I think there was a think tank or like an unofficial group that started at that point of time. The official founding of the Dutch Pirate Party came a few years later. The party was very obscure for the first time, and like the first 2 years only nerds and geeks have heard about it, and it didn't book any election success until 2009, when the Swedish Pirate Party got enough votes, 7.1%, to send first one, and then after the Lisbon reform, 2 people to the European Parliament, which was a big success, obviously. In Germany, for the same elections, the Pirates got 0.9%, but a few months later, in the German general elections, the German Pirate Party got 2%. So within like 3 months, they grew from, they more than doubled their votes, and they grew from 0.9% to 2%. And last year, in October 2011, the Pirate Party actually got votes into the Berlin Pirate Parliament, the Berlin State Parliament. So Germany is divided into 16 states and Berlin is one of them. After that, in the spring of 2012, they also made it into the Parliament of the German states of North Rhine-Westphalia, which is the biggest German state, the Parliament of Saarland, which is a smaller German state, and the Parliament of Schleswig-Holstein. And that was remarkable in two things. First of all, that in Germany you need more than 5% to go into a state parliament or the national parliament. In Berlin, like in all of those elections, the Pirates actually got more than 8. And in Berlin, everybody said, yeah, this is because people are not happy with traditional politics and it's protest politics. But it's a very urban phenomenon, only young people are going to vote for them. But then after that, in the next elections, Saarland is a very rural place with lots of villages and not a lot of young people. It's not a hip place at all. If you go up in the Saarland, like you turn 19 or 18 and you want to start studying, usually you leave the state and go somewhere else. So it was remarkable that the Pirate Party was able to score success there as well. And yeah, I will talk later about where that success came from. The question now is, what about other countries? In Austria, they're polling at between 4 to 6%, which is a big success. And here in the Netherlands at the moment, the Dutch Pirate Party is polling between 1 and 2 seats, I think, still. Which is also a huge success, given that the Dutch Pirate Party started 3 years later than like most other pirate parties that have had successes until now. And it's also significant because in the Netherlands, it's quite easy for new parties to enter parliament, so the Dutch Pirate Party has a real shot at doing that. In Germany, the poll numbers that the Dutch pirates have would not allow them to go into the parliament, for example. Also, there's another institution since 2009, it's called Pirate Parties International, and it's an NGO that has a seat in Brussels. And that is supposed to help the pirate parties to connect with each other and to help new pirate parties that, like, if there are some people that want to start the pirate party in their own country, it helps them with resources and with know-how and to connect them to the broader movement. What is also interesting is that the Pirate Parties International is trying to, or applied to get a seat in WIPO, which is the World Intellectual Property Organization, which is a it's by the United Nations. It's an organization to talk about intellectual property and copyright. If the Dutch Pirate Party makes it into the Dutch Parliament, and if the Pirate Parties International makes it into the WIPO, that would mean that there are pirate parties, people from the pirate parties on all international levels of policy. There are a lot of local pirates and some local government seats in Germany, Switzerland and Czech Republic. They are in a regional government in Germany. There would be a national parliament in the Netherlands, and there would be an international level, first of all in the European Union Parliament, and second of all via WIPO in the UN, which is quite remarkable if you think about it, that the movement is only like six years old, 6.5. Yeah, and then there's also the European Pirate Party in the making. Patrick is going to talk about that a bit later. So the next question would be, why is there a pirate party? It all started when in the wake of Napster, and a lot of people in the early 2000s were downloading internet, like movies and music from the internet, and Hollywood didn't like that, and the MPAA and the RIAA, which are the lobby organizations of Hollywood and of the American music industry, tried to fight that all over the world. In Denmark, they founded something called Anti-Piratgruppen. But then other people in Denmark said, well, if you have anti-Piratgruppen, so they said that the pirates are the people that download and pirates are bad. But other Danish people thought that this downloading is not bad at all. So they founded Piratgruppen to show that downloading is not a bad thing, and to try to turn the word pirate into something positive. From that, in Sweden, the Piratenpartij, or Pirate Office, was founded. This is all in the early 2000s, where the pirate bay and also Piratenpartiet, the Swedish pirate party, got their name from. To sum up why this movement is important, it's easiest to talk about ACTA, because a lot of people have heard about it, and because it shows very well what the movement is about and why it's necessary to have it. ACTA is an international treaty, or was supposed to be an international treaty, signed by a lot of first world countries, like all the EU countries, Switzerland, the United States, Canada, Japan, New Zealand, Australia, and a few other countries like Mexico or Morocco. And it was supposed to make copyright in all those countries, and also like product piracy, the laws concerning product piracy, like to make it was supposed to make the laws concerning product piracy and also internet piracy more similar in all those different places in the world. But by doing that, it would have infringed on the freedom of information in the internet and freedom of communication by things like 3 strikes, that if you are caught downloading 3 times, like the first time you get a letter, the second time you get a not so nice letter, and the third time they cut off your internet. And they do that because they want you to stop downloading, but while they do that, they also cut you off of a lot of communication. And for example, in some countries it would not be possible to do banking anymore, because there's no normal banking anymore, there's only internet banking in some countries, not in all countries. So that's why this kind of laws are bad concerning the internet. But ACTA went further than that. It also made medicines for the third world harder to transport, basically, because they all go through Europe. It also would have established patents on living beings as part of the law code of those countries. Countries would have been obliged to do laws like this, to introduce laws like this. And the biggest problem of showing why ACTA was bad was that it was intransparent. The people talked about things that would have affected a lot of people over the world. The politicians talked about it and lobbyists talked about it. But the people that would have been affected didn't really know that it was talked about and did not have a choice of talking with the people deciding about it. Only thanks to WikiLeaks and some other people who leaked versions of ACTA, we knew what was being talked about and what was being discussed. So things like 3 strikes were able to be averted. Instead of saying the countries, the signatory countries would have to establish 3 strikes, it said then they should establish 3 strikes. But still, even though they said they were becoming more transparent, they didn't really become more transparent in talking about ACTA, because they didn't really say what, like they said, they should introduce 3 strikes. The countries should introduce 3 strikes, but nobody really knew what should was defined as. So should could have meant they have to do it, or they have to show that they are doing it. So it wasn't so easy. So to sum up, not only did the people that are behind the Pirate Party movement say, well, they're trying to curb our communication devices, and they're trying to make communication much harder and to make surveillance on communication much easier. So we're trying to stop that. So ACTA had to be stopped, and it was stopped this summer in the European Parliament. But also, like, the people that are behind the Pirate Party, like, went a step further and thought, but why are they doing that? And how did it come so far that they passed almost this really, really bad international contract? And that's why people like Wagner and also the people you see here said, well, politics shouldn't work like this. There should be more accountability, and there should be more transparency in politics. So those are the things that basically the Pirate Party stands for. It's accountability for politicians, and it's for transparency, so that people can really see how politics is working. So So the next question would be, why was the Pirate Party successful until now? In 2008, the people that are behind the Pirate Party, Fredrik Ney, Gottfried Svartholm and Peter Sunde, in Sweden stood trial for working with the Pirate Bay. And in a way to protest against that, a lot of young Swedish people, or people that use the internet in their daily life, said, we don't want this, we need to do something against it. They protested against it, and at the next elections, which were the European elections, they voted for the Pirate Party. At the same year in Germany, there was a huge discussion about putting filters on the internet, officially against child porn, but it was it was lobbied very hardly by the entertainment industry, by the movie industry and by the music industry, who said once we have these filters in place, it will be easy to change the law to say we filter out child pornography and we filter out websites like the Pirate Bay. Very similar to a situation like in the Netherlands now, where the Pirate Bay is actually filtered because of different reasons, but this law was a way to try to get filtering of the internet into the German code of law. That's how the German Pirate Party grew from 0.9 to 2% back then. Then in Berlin, 2 years later, a lot of protest people also voted for them. People that were just fed up with how the old politics in Germany worked and that didn't like the way that Angela Merkel always stood there like this. And she stands always like this on pictures, and then she says, what I'm doing is without an alternative. And politics isn't really about talking, like just standing there and saying it is without an alternative. Usually there are alternatives in politics. Sometimes many of them are bad, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't talk about them. And so a lot of people thought that the Pirate Party is setting out to changing it. And in Germany, a lot of people thought that. But also that it's a way of saying that I don't really like this politics. So in Germany you have a situation now where 2% of the vote are people that are really convinced that the Pirate Party is up to something good, and that really like internet freedom and civil liberties, and are voting for the Pirate Party because of that. And the rest, which is like somewhere around 6% of the overall vote, so six eighths, which is 3/4 of the voters of the German Pirate Party, actually voting for the German Pirate Party because of protest, according to some surveys. So the question for the German Pirate Party then becomes, how do you turn those voters, how do you increase the 2% of people that are really convinced that the Pirate Party is something good, and that are not using the Pirate Party in a way to punish the old parties? Which brings me to the next topic, which is what are the problems until now. I talked already about one in Germany, about the protest party. A second one would be that we have the members of a party that has about 8%, and we have the expectations that we are a party that scores about 8%, but we only have the money for a party that scores about 2%, which really brings the German Pirate Party to a lot of problems. And we are often criticized, for example, in the press by being non-professional. But if you think about how cheaply we do the things we do in Germany, and what success we've had so far, we're actually doing quite well, and we are acting relatively professional compared, for example, to how the Green Party started in Germany. The success in Germany brings like some other problems with it. If you compare it to Austria, for example, Austria is quite influenced culturally and also politically by what is going on in Germany. So success of the German Pirate Party meant that in Austria a lot of people would just start talking about the Austrian Pirate Party as well. But the Austrian Pirate Party wasn't ready for that. Their structure is very much less developed than in Germany, or at least it was until like half a year ago. And the sudden spike in interest really it meant that they were becoming that they we're getting the structural problems of Germany just tenfold over. But also there were internal problems, and for example the Pirate Party of Tyrol tried to break up away from the main Austrian Pirate Party. Now they're back together, but you always have internal problems, and this just shows that the Austrian Pirate Party wasn't really ready to become, like, to be in a position where they have to talk about expanding their program further than communication and the internet, and also that they might have to send, or like that they will send people into the next parliament that gets elected in Austria. Whereas in Sweden, the Pirates are back to around 0.7% of the vote in the surveys at the moment, and in the last elections as well, which was where they were before the Pirate Party trial. So you can see that there, this 2% we have in Germany that are convinced voters of the Pirate Party. In Sweden, there are only 0.7% of the Swedish populace. So for them, it's even harder to grow this number, and they've lost a few elections and didn't, like, only made this 0.7%. It also had to do with them not being ready on a local level. In Germany, the politics works in a way that you have to, like, build a party up from a local level and talk to everybody everywhere in the villages and the towns and the cities, and then you go on a state level, and then you can only go to the federal level basically successfully. Whereas in Sweden they went to the state level but didn't really take care of the local level, and sort of lost like interest, because they thought what we're talking about is not important on the local level. In Germany we disagree. We think that transparency is also something that your mayor or like your local council should be thinking about, and that they should make some data available for you as a citizen, because you paid to create that data to begin with. And also they had problems that in Sweden it's very normal to have, like, flat hierarchies, and that doesn't mix so well with, like, politics where people, like, voters always want to see faces and so on. In Germany we're working on that too, but in Sweden it created more problems because of the culture in the party. So I'm going to speed up a bit and talk about the chances. In Germany we have elections in January in Lower Saxony, and in September in Bavaria, and on the federal level. We're polling at the moment in a way that we will probably make it in there, even though the polls are currently going down a bit, but we're still above the 5% threshold. Yeah. In the Netherlands, that's why you're here, there's a good chance that the Pirates will send hopefully 2 or 3 candidates into the next Tweede Kamer. Internationally, it means it's an international movement where people don't really care about the national borders so much, but are trying to be aware of the cultural borders that exist and trying to take care of them, but at the same time say that something that is decided in Germany has an influence on other countries as well. Something that's decided in the European Union has an influence on Switzerland. Something that's decided in the US has a big influence on the rest of the world. So, as opposed to some other movements and parties, the Pirate Party tries to really work together over borders. And in the end, for society, we hope that the success for the Pirate Party would mean better laws. In Germany, for example, a lot of laws are ending in front of the German Constitutional Court, because the court says that you can't do this is against the Constitution, much more than they used to. So the politicians are doing a worse job, and we hope that with our success they will do a better job. But also that there's more transparency and less populism. In the Netherlands, it would probably mean better civil rights, more privacy, and things like brain don't happen again. Yeah, and internationally, if you look at the Arabian Spring or China, hopefully it can mean to spread of democracy. Thank you very much.